Okay. I've been enjoying the class, and then right from inception, I followed, but at the point I stopped. But I downloaded all your videos, so I have all your videos on my system. But
Mm.
now the question I wanted to ask is this: I became confused along the line while I'm doing all the work on my system seamlessly, because if I have issues, I go back to the video and then I follow according to how you did it, and then I'm getting it. I can say I've not had tough issues like that because I memorized almost everything you did, and I'm getting it well. But now, my question is this: if, for instance, I'm invited for an interview,
Mm.
I'm given two systems, two different systems with
Mm.
no hypervisor on them,
Mm.
system A, system B. And then I'm asked to network these systems and then get somebody from somewhere to work on them, then manage the system. I'm a bit confused because basically we use just one system with the client and then also with the server. So now, sir, I don't know if you can please open my eye a bit because my mind is kind of not too broadening because I'm using just one system. How do I navigate? What do I do?
Okay. Okay. Who was that? Who asked that
Ada,
question?
I
Ada.
did.
Ada, okay. Ada, you are not using just one system.
Okay.
You are working in a virtual environment. Or you didn't set up your VM virtual box.
I did. I did. As a matter of fact, I had two servers. I had three clients because I'm using quite a good system. So, but then my fear is, what if I go to an organization? Because actually, from the day I joined your class, like from the first day, I designed a CV that had, according to every step you give, I had it on it. Like, okay, create a client server, create users, configure passwords, change passwords. I just keep like if I learn today, I add it to the CV and then I submit. But then I was going to ask myself, what if I go for an interview and then the first question is, you say you can do all this, okay? Now we have two systems. Do this. How do I navigate? That's my fear.
Yeah, you already made your point. Answering the question is not yes, no. Then the question is a discussion. It's a long discussion.
Okay. That
The
I
answer,
asked you personally.
yeah, I understand your question. I've already started to answer, but maybe you were expecting me to just hit this. No, the answer is a discussion.
Okay, sir.
The answer I'm giving to you will be talking, we'll be discussing, and then the answers will be coming up. All right, so let's start the discussion. So first of all, you are not using a single system. All right, because the answer to the question is removing some assumption from your mind so that the real answer can fit. To remove the assumption, remove the illusion that you are working with a single system. You are not working with a single system. You are working in a virtualized environment, more like cloud. So if you were to get a job tomorrow as a cloud architect or as a DevOps engineer that I'm ultimately training you to be, that's the kind of scenario you work in. All right. But what you are asking is, having developed some level of expertise in cloud and virtualized environment, how do you interpret this in an enterprise environment where
Thank you, sir.
the infrastructure will be physical and not virtual? As far as operations is concerned, in terms of create user, assign privileges and permissions, is exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing, no difference. If your fear is you have a network, and because on your virtual environment you did not have to crimp cable, you did not have to physically plug a cable, all you did was just check a box to say cable is plugged, then what position are you applying for? If you are being interviewed for the position of a network infrastructure engineer or a network, maybe not engineer, but some at the network level, you are being interviewed, then of course you are expected to know those things physically. You are expected to be able to crimp cables, to connect to switch, to connect to power, and do all those physical jobs. But if what you're applying for is the area of IT where we see or where we are going to witness a lot of opportunities in the very near future, in other words, cloud, then no one would bring you to an enterprise environment to interview you for a cloud position. So to be more specific, the things that are confusing you, there are two separate things. One is networking, one is network administration. I'm training you on network administration. That is the network, because this is a teamwork, like I always say, it's a chain. Somebody has to build the server, somebody has to build the network, and then bring you in as a network administrator. Somebody has to build the application for which all of these people are working, and somebody has to use the application. So all of these people are stakeholders on this project. Even if it's going to be a continuous project where there'll be development, operations, development, yeah, not just you doing the work of everyone. So if you are being interviewed for, somebody has to set up the server, configure the cables, introduce the switches, introduce the routers, configure your VLANs. No, that's not what I'm training you for. I cannot. I'm not training you to pass that kind of interview. So that's a different course. And then even though I started like that, I am migrating from that enterprise and physical environment now to cloud environment because that's what's in vogue. But what you are being trained for is this man has already done his work and the infrastructure are in place, everything is set, and you are just running, in fact, remotely, like you are doing already. You are running servers, you are doing the work, all these bits, you are putting them together on a remote server, on a server that is hosted on AWS or on Google, somewhere in America, wherever it is. You are just working, you are at this level now, you are not really there yet, but at this level, at least you're able to set up a network within your cloud. You're able to set up a network within your private cloud network, in your private cloud. And within that network, you can set up your server, you can prepare your server to host your website, you can control who comes and who goes out of the network. You can do these bits that I've shown you so far. All right, so finally, you may need to take, if that's your interest, you may need to take a course in networking to be able to physically, to be able to work in an enterprise environment, to be familiar with what a switch is, different kinds of routers, what routers do, how to configure routing protocols, how to configure VLANs. That's a different thing. But my interest in this course is not to take you to where we were 5 years ago, 7 years ago, but to prepare you for the future. So that's it.
Sir, please.
So did you get that, Adam?
I have something to say, sir.
Yeah, we're coming, Ilona. Adam, did you get that?
Yes, I did perfectly well.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. And then for your CV, you don't really put on CV step by step what you do with the tasks that you executed with under network administration. CV should be project based. CV should be like, there was this project where the organization needed to do stuff, and then I played this role. So don't say I can create user account. I can determine how many hours they log on. I can do this. No, that would be too voluminous. It would be something like in a project that involves setup of 300 clients, configuring domain controller, replicating the DNS server and the DHCP. I played the role of this and that. And of course, the person will know that playing that role involves executing over 20 different commands, and assumes that because you have played that role, you can execute those commands. Then specifically can ask you questions about, okay, in playing that role, what command did you execute? What exactly did you do when your domain controller went off? How did you bring up the secondary domain controller? Then you can ask me specific questions. But for CV, don't list the points one by one. It should be project-based, not bullet points-based. All right. So that's it. Ilona, I can have you now.
Yes, sir. I was trying to, or I was doing a practical on my own on the DNS configuration and the DHCP configuration. And though eventually following your class, following the video, eventually it worked. But I will appeal if you can send us that instructions, that step-by-step instructions. If you can help with that, that will go a long way to perfect the configuration.
Configuration for DHCP and DNS?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll see about that. I actually promised I was going to send it. Okay, I'll still send it. I'll see about that.
Appreciate it, sir.
All right. All right, questions? Questions, challenges?
So, one more question.
Yeah.
In entering passwords for users, I discovered that your own password you use daily 2020 hash. But some other, maybe you try to use a different password, maybe 5-letter passwords, 6-letter passwords with different characters. You still find it difficult logging in. I don't know why it's like that, sir. Although it will tell you ADDS or it will tell you configuration policy. So I don't know, is there a standard value or a standard numbering or number of characters that should be assigned to those passwords?
You haven't watched that video. There's a video on that talks about password complexity. So the password by default comes with the complexity box checked, which means that your password has to be complex for Windows Server to accept it. So a simple password like ADA will not be, it's not complex enough. Complex password would capture, would include capital letter. The password must have at least one capital letter, at least one small letter, at least one number, at least one special character. So you have to combine all of these for your password to become complex. So daily 2020 is capital D. So that part is the capital letter part is captured. Then the small letters. Then 2020, that's the numbers. Then hash. Do you get it? Unless you go back there to uncheck password complexity, then you cannot enter a simple password. It will not accept a simple password. Your password has to be complex. So I didn't want to generate complex password all the time. It's rather tasking to generate unique complex password. That's why I just stick with the single complex password that has worked for me, daily 2020 hash. So you have to continue to meet that condition. Otherwise, if you don't want to, then you go to the place, watch the video, go to the place where you can uncheck and say, accept any loose password. In fact, even if I do not enter a password, still go ahead and accept me. Then Windows will be able to accept just anything as password if you uncheck that box. How do you get there? Watch the video.
So,
password complexity requirement. It's a requirement. All right, question. And Afamefuna.
Sir.
How are you?
I'm fine, sir.
All right. So questions, challenges, issues you had, or may not even be question, just comment, observation. We're running up this course this week. Maybe tomorrow, yeah. Good questions. So the free training comes to end this week. This is your last week to ask questions. What are we supposed to be doing today? What are we doing today? Give me 1 second, please. What are we doing today? Hello? What are we learning today?
So it would be good to learn how to use another Active Directory service to host a website or a web page on a domain. It would be good to learn that.
Learn what? Come again with that.
I said it would be good to learn how to host a website on a domain using another directory service.
Yeah, I'm mixing up the terms.
Or using another service, rather.
Yeah, I'm mixing the terms up. But basically, you are saying, how do we create a web server so we can host our website and be able to browse from our website? All right, so let's go to our machine. Let me share my screen. Where's my screen? Share screen. All right, so okay, so I already have my primary domain controller, my secondary domain controller. So let me load my primary domain controller. And what we want to do today is convert my primary domain controller to a web server and then host a tiny website on it and be able to browse that website. All right, let me log in. In this case, I need just one system. One system will do. So I've loaded the system and I log in as a.
Can I see your screen?
Okay, let me share my screen again.
But the screen is on now.
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. What do you mean you're not sharing my screen? You don't see TTC mobile/administrator?
Okay, I can see it now. From my side.
Yeah, it was always there. Maybe it was the assistant that did.
Yeah.
All right, so I didn't get my password. Let me try my password again. All right, so primary domain controller, that's all we have. It could be any server. It doesn't have to be the primary domain controller. You know what a server is? Any machine running a server operating system. In this case, Windows Server Operating System is a server. So depending on what you configure on that server, then you could call it web server, file server, DHCP server, DNS server. As long as it's running a server operating system, it's ready to become a server. All right, so now the first thing we want to do to convert this system to a web server is load the service that makes your computer a web server. That service for Windows Server is called IIS, Internet Information Services. To load anything onto Windows Server, you know how to do it. Add rows. Let me just move this. All right, so you see my screen. Next. To which server? Of course, there's only one server here, and that server is this one to that server. Next. What are we adding this time? What service? There are so many services you can add. You see them? I can make it a print server. I can make it remote access. I can make it. There are so many services. But this time, what I want to add is web services. So I look for web services. I'm looking for web services. All right. So where is it? Web server. Look at it there. So I click web server and I say add feature. Web server, otherwise called IIS. So I say next, 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 and that's it. Very simple. So IIS is installed. By that, we have now made our server a web server. Simple. Our server is now a web server. Installation started on dc1.ttcmobileworld.com. So let's just wait for the installation to complete, and then we'll proceed from there. So simple question would, how do you convert your server, your Windows server how do you upgrade or convert your Windows server to web server? By loading, by installing, and configuring the IIS, that's Internet Information Services. Installation started, okay, it's still working. All right, so once that is, okay, installation succeeded. We can close that. And as you know, once we install a service, the next thing we want to do is configure that service. So we'll go to Tools, and then we'll go to IIS, Internet Information Services. We'll click IIS. So here we are. All right. So this is the IIS we just installed. So our server is already a web server. And you see all the defaults, the default website. You see all the services related to website that you can configure right here. So the most important one here is default document. Default document. There are different default documents: default.htm, default.asp, index.htm, index.html. So depending on what application you are using to develop your website, any of this is, any of them is good. In our case, in our simple example, I'm going to use HTML to create a very basic website. This course is not about website development, so we're not going into the details about how to create website. Remember that you work in teams. As you are preparing the infrastructure and making it ready for the web application, there's another team that is also focusing on the development of the application proper. So yours is just to make the server ready for them, because you are not jack of all trades. All right. So you have these default documents. So what does this mean? It means that anytime this website is looking to host, is looking to load, anytime this web server is looking to load a web server, it is coming to load from here. It will load one of this. That's what it means. All right, so let's work with index.html. I said we already have a web server. Does it mean that we can browse? Let us see. So we'll load our web browser. We load our web browser, and then we browse this web server. What's the name of this web server? By what parameter do we refer to that web server so that we can load it here? by its IP address? Or host? What's the host? So the IP address of that system is, do you remember the IP address? Let's quickly look. 192.254.100.100. All right. So 192.254.100.100. So we'll load this and then we'll close this. Brings us back here. 192.254.100.100. So that is what we are browsing. So seeing this tells us that our internet information services has been installed. So this is a web server. This is a web server because I see this. If it wasn't a web server, I'll see some kind of error. All right, so we could use the IP address to browse the server, or we could use the host name. When you are hosting on the server from which you are working, you call it localhost. All right, so right now we are working here, and we're not referring to another system. We're not referring to another server. This is the same server we're working on, we're referring to it. So we'll say localhost. So localhost, the same thing. We do have the web server. Like I always tell you, the grammar and the question is usually more difficult than the action and the implementation. Usually implementation is just a click of a button or two, if you know where to click. All right, so we have a web server. Now let us put something on this web server. All right, so we'll close this. To put something on that web server, then to put a basic website, what we do is, we go to the C drive, the hard disk of this system. You find it here, this PC C drive. We'll go here. And then there is a folder, there is a directory called inetpub. We open it. Then inside that inetpub, there is another directory called root. We open it. We must make sure that our web page is inside this folder. That's all. Whatever you are creating, whether it's going to be index.html, index.htm, default.asp, default of the 5 or 6 lists that you saw on that default pages. Whatever name you give to it, you must make sure that it's right inside here. All right, so let us create a simple one. Let's close this. To create a simple HTML file, you load your notepad. I load my notepad. This is my notepad. And I create a simple file and say, this is a simple web page. Do you think this page will load? All right. All right, we'll save it. In saving, make sure, remember that it has to be saved to a particular folder. I already showed you where that folder is. It's inside this PC, inside the C drive, inside inetpub, and inside root. All right? And then give it one of those 5 names that we saw there. In this case, we are giving it index.html. All right? Index.html and saved in the right place. That is it. You are done. You are done. All right. So let us go back and see what's on the offer. All right. So we're done. So how do we test it now to see if what we did is actually loaded as a web page on the web server? How do we test? The way to test is to browse. So we browse. What do we browse now? Either the IP address or the host name. What's the host name? What's the host name? What's the host name of our web server?
Localhost.
All right, localhost. All right, so it's coming up. This is a simple web page. Do you think this page will load? So the web page we created has loaded. So at this stage, we can call the web developer department. They are called developers, not necessarily web developer. Developers are people who create applications to put on the server that you have created. All right, so we are done. We have created a web server for you. Go ahead and do what you want to do. We have created a web server. So that's the answer to your question, Adam. This is how to create a web server. And some job roles within Windows might just involve creating only web servers and managing these web servers, especially when you work for ISPs. Okay, let's play around a little more. There's more to do. Let us go and see if we can enhance this page later. Okay, so we'll go back to this page, to the original page. Remember the original page? That is giving us that web page. It's saved in inetpub in www, and that is the page. You can right click it and say open. Open with what? How do we open an HTML file? We open with Notepad. So more application, Notepad, and that's it. All right, let's play around. Let's see if we can add stuff and make it beautiful. To tell the system that this file is an HTML file, I put HTML. You don't have to learn this. I just happen to know it. That's why I'm playing around with it. So this is called HTML tag, and there are many tags, 30, 40, 50. So HTML scripting is basically using tags to tell the web page what to do. So that's an HTML tag. So I'll put that at the beginning and at the end. But for the end, I will say this is the end of the HTML. So I'll put that sign, the slash. So HTML tag will always have an opening tag without the slash, and then a closing tag with the slash. Look at the slash, this slash. All right, so by that, I'm saying everything in between the opening and the closing tag, consider it HTML file. And then for this one, I can put another tag here to make this one italics. All right. And then at the other end, I'll say, whatever I open, I must close. I must say close italics. All right. Here I can say, put a paragraph. The fact that I have space in between the lines does not mean that HTML recognizes that space. To make HTML recognize the space, I'll say put a paragraph. All right. And then for this one, I will say make it very big. I can say make it a header. Header 1. Close it. And then on the other side, I must also say header 1. All right. But because this is the closing of the header, I'll put slash there. All right. So this is how to write HTML tag. I'm not teaching you, but just to have an idea. Oh, this is what HTML tag looks like. All right. So I saved everything. Because it's already saved. If I save it, you just replace what I had before. All right. So let us go back to our browser and see if what we see this time will be different from what we saw the last time. All right, this is our browser. See what you see now? So let us enter now and see if it will refresh. Wow, it has refreshed. So this is big, there is space in between now, and this is in italics. If I wanted to add color or add stuff, I could do that. As far as static web pages are concerned, that's how to do it. Any question on how to make your domain controller your web server and how to create a web page and display it within Windows? Outside Windows, there are bigger ways and broader ways to do it. For Windows Server, this is how to do it. Anybody ask you, can you create a web server out of Windows Server OS? Yes, this is how to do it. Question? Question. All right, so what are the steps now? Ilona Adams. The steps you would take to create a web server.
The first step is to install the service.
All right.
The IIS service.
Okay. Second step.
When it's installed, then to configure it.
Okay. Good. All right, and take over from there. After configuration, how do we create this web page?
You install you type in your IP address to see whether you can browse with it.
Okay. If I don't want to type in IP address, what's the option that I have? If I don't want to use that IP, local host. In other words, host name. The host name happens to be local host. All right.
Yes.
So what do I expect to see if that's successful? If it's not successful, I'll see some kind of error. If it's successful, if it's good, what do I expect to see?
Sorry, come again, sir.
When I type in localhost, what do I expect the browser to show me?
Okay, it will start browsing.
Okay. Okay, so you don't remember the page that you expect to see. It doesn't matter. That's fine. Yeah, Anthony, what do we do from there to create a web page?
You will see the Windows page. There's this page that will come up. You see that one. After that, you can now install an IDE. That is your editor. What you now use? In our case, you use a Notepad.
To do what?
That's what you now start using to configure writing your web pages.
Okay, in what scripting language? In what
You use Notepad. It was Notepad you use. But
yeah.
there are other IDE you can also use.
What do you mean
but
by
in our case, you use
what do you mean by IDE?
Integrated development environment.
Okay. So I use Notepad because I was using I wanted to use ASP or HTML or Java or which of them? Which of them?
HTML.
HTML, okay.
Yes.
All right, so that's it. Apparently you have followed that through. All right, so we have our web page. Now let's go and do more stuff. So we'll go IIS. IIS, and then we'll go to IIS configuration, manager, and then we'll go here. It's always the default site. So we're back on the default site now. Authentication, what does that mean? Let's open it up. Anonymous authentication. Okay, let's see. Let's see what that means. Let us load this and load the host. No, local host, right? All right. Now let's change this. Anonymous authentication. We'll click disable. All right. So let's go back to our web browser. That's our web browser. Many things to do there. Okay. All right. So let's go back to our web browser. All right. Error, unauthorized. So it is because we have said not anyone can log on to this local host anymore. We disabled it. That's why we are saying you are not authorized. Somebody was talking about a faculty project that he had to. So this will be useful to authorize access or block access to whatever he's able to come up with on that project. All right. So what do we do now to have only selected people, authorized people able to browse this website. So what we do is all right, so we'll go back to IIS. Let us go back to IIS. You remember this? Let me close that. Let's go back to IIS. And then this is what we do. Dashboard. Add roles and services. I want to see this. All right. Next. This time, what we want to add, you see that under web services, we have added only 8 out of 43 possible services. So we open that, and then we say web server, all right? And then we say common HTTP features, health, performance, security. What we have to do has to do with security, unauthorized. It has to do with security. So we open security, and then we say Windows authentication. Look at it. Windows authentication. And then we say next. Install. All right. So once that is installed, then we can now say only people who are registered, who are found, only users on the Active Directory should be allowed to browse that website, not the general public, even though it's on our domain. All right, so where do we go to check that? We'll go back to IIS configuration, IIS manager, and then of course, back to this same point. Okay, so you see now that we now have Windows authentication because we loaded it. It wasn't there the first time. So what do? We enable it. All right, now that it's enabled, let us go and check now. And we browse now. So we load our browser and we say localhost or the IP address, whichever. No. Anyway, first of all, you are browsing now. But the important thing I want to bring out from here is that for this one, we use the IP address to work with Windows authentication. The IP address of this server is 192.254.100.100. All right. So it brings up this one. This is what I want to bring out. That you are not allowed to browse this site unless you are able to provide your username and your password on this domain. Do I have a username and a password? Yeah, I'm the administrator, so I say administrator. Then my password. Yeah. Apparently I did get my password. Let's try again. Connecting to 192.254. I didn't get my password.
So your administrator is not spelled correctly.
Oh, okay. All right, so let's start again then. Take me to the beginning. What do I do? Okay, let me deceive it to live here first. Let me enter something different. Localhost. Okay, so let's try it afresh. 192.254.100.100. I need it to take me back to the more choices, okay? Use a different account. Administrator, administrator. So, is it correct now? All right, so I took my time. That should be correct now. So I'm able to browse now. So the point I'm trying to make, which is very useful, is that for your Windows authentication at this level, although there's something we're going to configure later to prove this, to make this easier. For you to see how your Windows authentication works, instead of host name at this level, just enter IP address. And you'll not be allowed in unless you prove by your username and password that you are authentic Windows user for this domain. Then it is loaded for you. Any question? Do you understand that? No question? All right. So that's about authentication. Compression, what does compression mean? What we have now is a static IP address. It's a static web page. But sometimes you also have dynamic web pages where, especially when images are involved and the pages are changing frequently. So in that case, your page may tend to slow down. Your website will be slow. To make your website fast, you can do compression, make it load fast. But compression is not enabled here. So how do we enable this so that you can click compression and the website can load fast and, and speed up? To load compression, the fact that it's not highlighted here, it's not active here, means that it's not loaded. Like we did the first time, you go back to your add rows, all right? And then you say next, next. This time we are loading a web server, but compression will have to do with web server, okay? So what are we loading? Compression. It has to do with performance. So we'll click performance to see what's on there. And then we'll see dynamic compression, content compression. That's all we want. We take it, we'll say next, next, and we install. All right. It's installing. All right, so once that is installed, we'll go back to our interface, succeeded. All right, so we'll go back to the interface. And then this time, this should be active now if you refresh. Instead of refreshing, I just click around and then come back to compression. It's active now. Look at it. It wasn't active the first time, so I can check. So what can I do to make my website fast, my dynamic web pages faster? I enable dynamic content compression. That is it. Just click it, enable. That's it. All right. All right, next. The changes you have made will be lost. Do you want to see? What change did I make? Compression is still highlighted. All right, so what else do I want to show you here? Compression, then let me show you virtual directories. All right, so, all right. So suppose we want to browse. Let me show you, where's the browser? Okay, let me load the browser first. Which browser is easy for my host? Okay. Suppose I want to load local host / training, for example. Where do I put this training web page so that it will load what you would call on the internet is subdomain, but here we'll call it a virtual directory. Okay. / training. To do that, this is what I do. First of all, I create a folder. Know how to create a folder? For that virtual directory that I want to create, let me create the folder always on C drive. Make sure you're always on C drive so that looking for it to be easy. So let's create a folder called training. And then let's create a page inside this training, a web page, an HTML web page inside this training. We open it and we'll create a page there. All right. I could say new page, but let me just go to Notepad and do it from Notepad. That way I'm sure. Notepad. All right, that's my Notepad. And then this is my Notepad. What do we want here? Another page. Inside localhost. All right. So if you want, you can play around with your HTML tags. You want to add color and stuff. Well, let's just leave this as it is. But remember that this web page has to be saved. Remember the name you want to save it by. Has to be saved inside your training folder. Remember your training folder? Look at it. Training. Look at it. When it has to be saved there, and 2, it has to be saved as an HTML file. You can give it any name. If you want, you can give it index, but in order not to confuse this index with the other one, let's give this one training. Training.html, HTML. All right, saved in training, fine. All right, so we have created a folder and we have put a web page inside that folder. Correct. So we are done with that. So we'll come here as well. And we say add virtual directory. That virtual directory that we just created now, training, we add it here. So we add. What alias do we want to call it? Let us call it, give it any alias, training. It's okay. And then what is the path name? You remember the path name? It's in C drive inside the folder training. That is the path name. So this means that anytime I say training, go to training folder and pick the web page there. That's what I'm saying here. All right. I say, okay. One more thing. Or rather, let me try it first and then you realize. Okay. So we're done. So let us browse now. So this time we're browsing localhost. And then we're browsing the virtual directory training, because that's the alias we called it. All right, error. Why are we having error? Because if we come to the folder training and we open it, yeah. Okay, it's already open. So right now is the default website. This one is training home. Do you see training home? So if we open the default documents, we see default.html, default.asp, index.htm, index.html, irs.start.html. Where is the page that we are supposed to load on that training? What's the name of that page? All right, so what is the name of the web page that we created in training that is supposed to load? Is it displayed here?
It's not displayed.
All right, so what is the name? What's the name of the file that we created inside the training folder that we want to load as a web page?
It was training.html.
Sorry, Tony?
Training.
They're not clear, but I heard training. All right, so training is not displayed here. So let us add it. So we'll come here and we'll say add that name that you give to me, Tony. That name is training.html. All right, good. It's now added. So anytime it comes to HTML to want to load a web page, the one that it will find here and also find it over there is training.html. That's fine, correct. So now let's let's attempt to load the web page again. Look at the web page. Training.html. So we'll enter now, and it's loading the page now. Correct. So this has to add a subfolder. All right. So at this stage, this lesson, I must confess, is becoming boring. You people are not participating. You can't just keep me talking for 2 hours and I'm asking questions and nobody is really actively participating. So it's my conclusion. No, it's not enough to follow me. It's enough to, I've told you many times that I need participation. It's only Tony that's participating. Others are just there and maybe doing some other thing. Apart from Ilona Adams, I feel I'm just talking to air. So this is going to be the last lecture. Tomorrow's lecture will not hold, and the subsequent lectures will not hold. 2 hours of my time here in the US is what good money. So I can't just sit here because I want to improve people's life, and then I'm just talking. I'm wasting my time, wasting my resources. I was out there consulting. No, you are doing your bit, Ilona, but I can't just keep wasting my time. I can't keep wasting my time. It's not as if I collected money from you. 2 hours, I should be out there making money. So this is the last lecture there would be. So I will work on the assumption that the lecture is too complex for you guys. You are not. That's why you are not active. In the first place, I have just 8 people participating. That's not encouraging. And of the 8 people, you're just keeping me there and you're just doing your stuff as if you have paid me. So I must do the work whether I like it or not. So this is the last lecture I will have with you. I'll complete this today. Anybody that wants to continue hereafter, go and join my meeting.
Can I say something? I
cannot continue. Yeah, you are saying for yourself. I will allow you to say, but it's for yourself, not for
please,
me.
Let me say something, sir.
All right.
Sir, please, can you allow me to speak, because you've not been speaking while the training was going on. Sir, you've done a lot impacting us with this knowledge, and we are very grateful and we appreciate all your effort and your time. And I also want to say that it is not a wasted effort, because you are building us, and we are your extension, in the sense that this knowledge you're imparting to us will be used.
I understand all of that, but I'm talking and nobody is responding. So how am I supposed to feel that you are participating? Someone is using me to eat breakfast, another person is using me to eat dinner, and then no. I cannot continue like that. My time is worth more than that. So let us continue with this training. Yes, please.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
I can hear you. Speak on, please.
Yes, sir, I really do appreciate all your effort personally, and I am so sure that at least a few others will also appreciate your effort. Like today, as I'm talking to you now, I'm completely wet from my head to my toe. It's raining in Lagos. I could not connect at 3 o'clock. You know, I'm not defending myself. I'm probably, why we don't have people come online is because of, there's no reason for them not to come online. Personally, as I'm talking to you, I'm wet from my head to my toe. You can imagine, I had to manage myself in the car because I know what I needed to gain personally. So I joined very late, and I would have loved to participate and speak, but I'm not really in how would I say it, in a very conducive condition now. I'm managing to just hear, so that at least when I'm going through the video all over again, I know that I've heard something.
Yeah, you don't all have to participate and speak, but in a class of 8 persons, I'm asking questions and you only 1 or 2 people being active there. How do you expect me to feel? No, I know you speak for yourself, but I understand your perspective. If you didn't say that, I wouldn't know. I understand Ilona speaking
I don't want
from his mind, but it's not the same for everyone. All right, so let's continue. Don't worry, just be active. Just show me that talking, you are hearing me, you understand what I'm saying, and when you don't understand, that's the only way. I can't just keep talking as if I'm talking to myself. If Tony doesn't come on board to make any contribution, any good contribution, the rest of you, I don't even see you. I don't see you. Anne will come on for 1 minute and the next minute she's off. The mother, she has to take care of other things, I understand. But what about other people?
So I have a question, sir.
Yes.
Under that comprehension, we check that static and the static and the dynamic.
Okay.
Why do we check the two together? I thought it's just going to be one, since
So
dynamic can cover everything.
No, the static is already there by default. It's already checked. Yeah, maybe dynamic can cover everything, but you can uncheck. It shouldn't really matter because what you're actually trying to achieve is the dynamic. But if you uncheck the static, it wouldn't matter. It will still work. But why do you want to uncheck it? You understand what I mean? Compression. So the static is already checked by default. The dynamic is what you really want to achieve. So since it doesn't cost anything, doesn't take anything from you, you can as well leave it. All right. So where were we?
Well, sir, I'm still curious to know how haven't done this. I'm curious how we can is it host or load a website on this layer of infrastructure that we've done.
How you can host a website?
Yes.
That's what we are doing now. We just hosted a small, or is it because it's so small? That's why you don't appreciate it. We just hosted a small HTML website.
Okay, because I have a couple of websites. I'm thinking of doing a practical. How do I load my websites on this virtual, on this?
What did you use to develop your website?
I used a web builder actually.
What's the web builder? Was it on what programming language? What platform was it built on?
123.com.
No, you can't do that. Those are already, those are proprietary. You use their platform to build website for their site. But if you were talking about, you are using HTML or PSP or ASP or WordPress or PHP, those are platforms. Those are more like programming languages.
I have a WordPress website too.
Well, you're not asking your question. It's not me that will frame your question for you. So what I guess you are trying to ask is, how do you load a WordPress website on this web server that you just created? Is that your question? It's beyond this course. You do that in Linux.
Linux, okay.
Yes. Remember that in operations, website will be services that will be accessed by unpredictable number of people. In fact, ranging in the millions. I know that for a small website like yours, maybe just a few hundred. So for websites that are used on commercial level, we don't use Windows to host that kind of website, to build the web server for such website. We use Linux to build such web servers. And then there's something called LAMP in Linux. So you first of all install the Linux, and then you put the application on which you run a database before you eventually, no, application will be the last thing. Anyway, there are 4 different levels in building this kind of web server that you are talking about that can host what's the application again? What's the application you said you are using?
WordPress.
That can host WordPress. So that is beyond Windows. Windows is just for a domain of 50, 70, 100, 200, 300 within your
enterprise
domain.
Environment.
Yeah, enterprise, but enterprises could be big, enterprises could be small. But really, like a faculty, small, you're not looking at more than 300, maybe 1,000. That's really, really small compared to a public network. A public network where on the internet and people are could browse, even though they are not browsing immediately, but you want to make you want to create the allowance for them to outscale, to in-scale, to vertically scale, and all that. So it's beyond this. In fact, it will even be beyond Linux. What you are asking for you will learn a part in Linux, but the real thing will be in cloud. You want to be able to set up a fresh server from scratch, create an EC2, load Linux, in fact, even when you don't want to load Linux, you can load the solution, because in cloud there are different solutions already predefined for all these scenarios. So you can load the solution that has already been predefined for this project that you are trying to build. So what you are asking for is beyond this small enterprise level. It's really a public level question. You learn it. You learn just a bit of it here. You learn more of it in Linux, and then of course you learn the real thing in cloud. Yes, I can take your question.
Okay, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. At window network administration level, can one apply this knowledge in setting up a cyber cafe kind of infrastructure?
What exactly do you mean? What part of cyber cafe work?
Because I can see that this is about networking, and you can join computers with at this level on Windows server level.
Okay.
Can one set up a cyber cafe with this knowledge?
All right. Contributions from class. With what you have learned so far, do you think you can set up a cyber cafe? And do you know what a cyber cafe does? What you expect? And do you think that with this knowledge, are you able to set up a cyber cafe with what you've learned so far?
Yes, sir, you can.
Okay, so run through the steps and how what you've learned so far will be useful in following those steps of setting up a cyber cafe.
Okay, just like the way we created this in the primary domain controller, which controls other other machines.
Okay.
That's the main one. So that one can like control other computers, like what the customer can access and what the customer cannot access.
That is a cyber cafe now. That's just a cyber cafe. So what else do you need, Ilona, Adams, aside what Anne just explained? So setting up your domain is the cyber cafe. In fact, the cyber cafe will be simpler, much simpler, because even in cyber cafe, you may not want to introduce all of this security that will bar. You may not want to restrict, introduce any form of restriction for both the users and the computer. So you want to make it loose. In fact, you want to make it not a domain, but a work group. So what I'm saying is, for cyber cafe, what you have learned is too complex. You don't even want to use all these things in cyber cafe. They are too complex. You want to use them for a corporate network like a bank, like the company where you work, like places where security is important and you want to implement security. Cyber cafe, no. Anybody want to do HTTP, you want to allow him. Anybody wants to do
like IT department of a school.
Yeah, IT department of a school will be domain, because you want to introduce some kinds of security so that not everyone will have access. So for a school, the reason you are setting up the infrastructure is so that you can keep the bursar would have a department where he keeps records of who is owing and names us, okay? Another, the registry will have a department where it keeps certificates and the names of all students and all. So you want to introduce some kind of security so that people will not just come and edit. So cyber cafe is too small. In fact, 1 day, 2 day training, the first 1 or 2 days training of this course, be able to set up cyber cafe. The rest are too complex to be executed for cyber cafe. All right, so, well, whether you are using this for CyberCafe or not, the whole idea of client-server network is what you do in CyberCafe. It's just that in CyberCafe, like I said, you may not want to go through, because not everyone can go through this training. This training should be earning you money, not just of. So because not everyone will understand server enough to be able to build a client-server network, what they will do is just use a third-party software that will behave like server and just put it on top of their regular Windows 8 or Windows 7, and they manage their entire network from that third-party CyberCafe software. But if you use that third-party CyberCafe software, everything is doing, you know that you could have done it with server directly without using that. But because server is too complex to learn, like you are finding it, like we are learning it now, not everybody can come here. That third party will just present everything graphically and beautifully, and it's just a matter of click, 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 and you get what you want. Just play around with that software for 3 days or 2 days, you'll be good. All right. So we've been able to create what did we create? Virtual directory. Been able to create virtual directory. Any other question? Yeah, ask more questions and let's see where this training is relevant.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your effort.
All right. Tony.
My question is the page we developed, the website we developed, the protocol there is HTTP.
Yes.
How do we make it HTTPS?
All right, let's go there, Tony.
Using this platform.
Yeah, let's go there. Let's do it.
Sir?
Let's do it. All right, so
okay,
so let's all right, so let us browse. What are we doing here? Okay, let's close this. So let's browse that site again. What's that site? Either the IP address or the local host. So Tony is saying that this protocol is using HTTP, but if we wanted to introduce HTTPS, the S there means security, which means that a security certificate has been assigned to this site, and this site is now considered a secure site. So you can do business with this site. You can upload confidential information, and the site will not retain it because it is secure. All right, so if you see HTTPS, it's going to say connecting to this host through HTTPS is not possible. I cannot browse through HTTPS because this site does not have a security certificate. A security certificate is supposed to be issued by a third party, and it's called SSL. SSL. These days, the modern name is Transport Layer Certificate, TLS. Okay, so but we old school, we still stick with the old name SSL. But it basically means that it is a certificate that is issued to that website by a third party, not by you, saying that this website is secure. If you are making payment on this site, go ahead, it's secure. So any site that you want to make payment or give your social security or do anything serious, and it does not have S, it does not have HTTPS, instead if it has HTTP, please run away. That site is not secure. So if you go ahead to do anything on that site that is not secure, you are doing it at your own risk. Don't come back and cry later. All right. So how do we now secure this website so that, very vital question. Now, since we don't have a third-party certificate to make our site secure, let us generate our own self-signed certificate so that we're able to browse this website using HTTPS. Why are we doing self-signed certificate? Remember that we are within our own domain. We are not in the public domain. This is not internet. We are within our own local area network. this domain, everything that is happening here is only within our own domain. Do you understand what I mean by our own domain? So if this was shell, whatever I'm doing here as administrator in shell Warri or shell Port Harcourt is relevant and applicable only to our shell Port Harcourt network. So even though I'm able to browse, I'm able to do HTTP, I'm able to do HTTPS, I'm able to do FTP, because I configured it, I'm able to do stuff that I would normally do on the internet. Because I configured it for my local area network, it doesn't mean that we are the internet. In fact, because it looks like the internet, but not really the internet is our domain and relevant only for this domain, it is called intranet. Intranet. All right, that's the project title that I sent you. So let us set up within our intranet and make this HTTPS. Whether it is HTTPS in the public right now, it will not, in fact, it will not work on the public because we are self-generating it for our own intranet. How do you self-generate an IIS certificate? This is how to do it. So let's go back to IIS. All right. Tony, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, sir.
All right. So you go here and then you right click. You know, this is our web. All right. Don't worry. You can mute yourself since there's nothing. This is our website, but the certificate is not generated by our website. Certificate is generated by our server. So we click the server and then we okay. So this is the server. So we click the server. What we see on that website here, look at this place. Look at this DC home. Look at this page. If I go back to site and I say domain website and I go back here, the content is different. You see that the content is different. The content of this place. I click here is different. So when I click the server, I go to, I should see certificate here now. Server certificate, look at it. Server certificates. So I click server certificates. Let me maximize it so that you can see. All right. So server certificates, and then I say create self-signed certificate. Can you see that? It's self-signed because normally I should be asking a third party like Microsoft, like there are servers. There are servers. There's a name for those servers that just generate certificates for websites, and I pay them to generate an SSL certificate for me. But what we want to do here is ask this our own server to generate our own certificate and sign it by ourselves. That's why it's called self-signed certificate. So we'll click that and we'll say specify a friendly name. What name do you want to call this certificate? Our own certificate. Let's just call it that name, certificate. All right. And then we'll say, okay, it's done. That certificate has been generated. So we have generated a self-signed certificate. It is issued by the server, dc1.ttcmobile.com, issued to that server by itself. All right. So that is it. The self-generated, the SSL certificate has been self-generated. You want to see the certificate. To see the certificate, go to your search and say MMC. Under MMC, you see file, add, remove, stamp ins, certificates, finish, and then you see the certificates here. Always enable all, that's not my interest. So certificate is there. And then we'll say, okay. So this is our certificate inside here. So we'll open the certificate and then we'll open trusted root authorities. Trusted root authorities. That is the folder where the certificate is kept. And then we'll open certificates And then we see so many certificates generated by Windows and other bodies for different purposes. All right. But the one we just created now, what is it called? Our own certificate. Our own certificate. Look at it. Generated for DC1. So that's the certificate. That's our certificate. So since we are here now, we are seeing the certificate. Do you want to quickly copy and paste somewhere else so that you don't have to come here all the time? Let us copy it and paste on our C drive on our desktop. So you say copy, and then we go to our C drive, and then you say paste. But you realize that paste is not working. So you cannot copy and paste certificate just like that. The whole certificate, you just want to copy and paste. Is it that easy? All right, so what else can we do? We can go back there and we say all tasks and we say export. We say export. So we go to export and we say next. Do you want to add a private key? Because certificate should be very, very secretive. So, well, don't worry, let's just go ahead. Okay. Export to where? File to export. What's the name of the file? Specify the name of the file you want to export. What's the name of the file you want to export? Get that file be. What's the name of our file? Our own certificate, right? Our own certificate. All right. Let's see if next will work. Complete the certificate export wizard. Export keys. No, I didn't have keys. It looks good. Let's finish and see if it will export. The export was successful. All right. So let's quickly go and check if it was actually exported to C drive. No, it was not exported here. I can't see it here. Where did you export to? Let's do it again. There's something we missed. Export. Here. Look at it. So what we missed was I typed it manually. So let me take it from here. You copied the wrong thing. So our own certificate already exists. Do you want to replace it? Yes, sir. Replace it because I didn't see the one that. All right. So this is a replace. All right. Browse. Okay, it exported to this place. Okay. This question is wrong. Specify the name of the file you want to export. All right, C drive, export to C drive. All right, next. Okay, export successful. Okay, let me see if you are deceiving me or if it's actually there. Drive C. Oh, the certificate is here now. So we exported. So in case you want to do this, it's not likely you would do this. It's just for, it's not likely you would want to generate a self-signed certificate, but just in case, let me show you something. This place that confused us a little. The question is wrong. It says file to export. Specify the name of the file you want to export. This should be specify the destination that you want to export the file to. The name of the file and the destination you are exporting to. Are you still there? So you may want to make a note of this, that I'm exporting to C drive. I'm exporting to C drive, the root of C drive. And the name of the certificate should be, you can actually give it another name if you want, should be 3. This means we're exporting 2 times if I continue with this one. All right, so finish. Export was successful. So if I go back to there, I'll see 3. So that proves that this is the correct thing. So take note of that place. Microsoft didn't tell us that thing. In any case, this is how to export certificate. Let's remove that one. All right, so did you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
So are you able to export certificate now? If you can tell them at the interview that you can export certificate, you are good. because not these things I'm teaching you, not everyone knows it. Not even people that have been doing administration for a long time. All right, so that is how to export certificates. And watch that place where we proved Windows wrong and we enter the correct thing that we should enter. All right, so now that we have created the certificate, 1, and we have exported the certificate, 2, the next thing we want to do is bind that certificate that we created to this website. All right, you bind it to the website. So we'll click the website. Let me maximize this. All right, so we'll click the website. We'll click the, to create the certificate, we came here. But to bind it, we'll come back to the website and we'll say binding. Bind what? This is your question, no, Anthony. So first of all, we add the port, HTTPS, port 443. All right, host name, you may change host name, you may not change it, but for this purpose, let me just leave it. Let me not confuse you further. And then we'll say select. Sorry. SSL certificate. How many certificates do we have? In this case, we have just one. If we had many, we'll look for the particular certificate that we want to bind to that website. We'll click it. So we'll say bind this certificate to this website so that the HTTPS protocol will use this certificate. We'll say, okay, we are done. So we can now browse on HTTP and on HTTPS. Close. All right, so Tony, that's the question to your answer.
Thank you so much, sir.
Oh, that is the answer to your question. But let's test. Let's test to see if it's working. It's not going to work. HTTPS. Okay, the same local host, right? Okay, it's already doing HTTPS. All right, so it's HTTPS now. And we're waiting for it to browse. It's not going to browse because there's something we have not done. Okay, there's a problem with this website, but it's going. It's going. There's a problem with this website, blah, blah, blah. Click, continue to this website, I understand. It's going. Now, the reason I said it wasn't going to browse, let me quickly correct that before we come back here, is because on a different system, oh, sorry, where's mine? All right, so on a different system, if it wasn't this same computer, Anthony, if you were going to browse from a different system now, why did you export this certificate in the first place? You exported this certificate to a different system so that you can double click it. You can double click and you install the certificate on that system you are browsing from. It happens to browse on this system because we are coincidentally using the same system. I don't know if you get what I mean. So the reason you are exporting this certificate is so that you can install it. Okay, you have created this server. You've done all of these things on the server. Now you want to browse from the client. So on the client, you need to install this certificate. That's the only way the client will be aware that it is going to browse. It will be able to use the HTTPS that you have configured at the server. So after exporting the certificate, you double click it at the client to install it. Then after you have installed at the client, you can now go and browse. And then browsing will now be able to load. The first time we tried to load HTTPS, it didn't load. You remember that it didn't load?
Yes, very true, sir. Didn't load.
Sometimes I got so excited with what I'm teaching you. I'm just talking blah, blah, blah. I forgot that people are not even there. All right, so the first time that we tried to load HTTPS, it did not load. But after we have done all of these things we just did, it's now loading HTTPS. However, the reason it is showing red is warning that this HTTPS certificate you are relying on, it's not genuine. It was self-generated. It's not issued. It wasn't issued by a third party. Don't trust it. That is why it's showing red around it. But we understand that. the important thing is that it is now loading HTTPS, even though it is doing that with warning. And that answers your question, which is very, very fundamental, which is a very good question from Tony, and not a small level question, it's a high level question, because we're now getting to the advanced stage where not everyone is able to comprehend what we are doing. All right, so this is HTTP, and it's loading fine. But what about if we put S here now? What about put HTTPS S here? Is it able to load? Yeah, you can mute yourself now, your background noise. All right, so it's still loading. So HTTPS is still working, even for the subdomain. All right, so that is how to load HTTPS. Now, there is a higher level stuff that you'll not be able to understand in this class, but maybe truly will understand if I tell you in theory. To make, what if you have like 300 clients? You can mute yourself now because of your background noise. Please, yeah. Where's that noise coming? Oh, that's from Ilona. All right. So, what was I talking about?
You say if we have 300 clients. Say if we have 300 clients.
Okay, if we have 300 clients, you will not be exporting your certificate to the clients one by one to install on them. So what you could do, you know, in a domain, anytime you want something to affect the entire domain, whether the entire computers or the entire user, you go to where? Group domain policy. You go to group domain policy. So what you would do is go to group domain policy and put your certificate there. So that way, you don't have to export to all the computers one by one. Every computer will be able to access it directly from the group domain policy. But that's too advanced for this class. I don't want to do it. But if you're already an admin person or a network person, you can experiment with it. All right, so any question? So with that one now, we'll now know how to, let me see if there's anything I'm missing. So with that one now, we'll now know how to configure IIS, how to create a small web HTML page, not the one that Adams asked about, not web, what's that thing called? We now know how to create a small HTML page, not the complex ones yet. And then we know how to create virtual directories. We even went ahead to create a self-signed certificate, and we're able to browse using HTTPS. All right, so with this one now, you can go and do the project that I sent to you on the platform. Go and do that project as your practice. You don't have to submit it. I've already given you everything that you need to be able to do that project. Who was that person that was talking about putting CV? Writing something on CV. So that's the kind of project you can put on your CV to say, I did this. And put that project there to say, I was able to set up this from, but for a company, just put a fictitious company. You can put it that I work for this company and this was the project. Once you can, that is better than saying, I can create the bay, I can create this, I don't know, just put the project in. All right. And how you generated a self-signed certificate. Well, it's not as if they need that skill directly, but knowing that you can do that just shows that you know stuff. And they're looking for people who know stuff well enough that they can build them. All right, so that's about it for today. I'll just take your questions for the remaining 20 minutes, consolidate on what you have learned, and then that'll be it for today. Questions, interactions?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, you've taught us about backup. So if you want to back up this website now, or more back up the server, automatically do we back is the website backed up, or do we need to back this up separately?
No, it will be separate. What we learned in backup are the three core services: DHCP, DNS, and ADDS. So those three are backed up, are replicated continuously, but not your website. You need to back up your website separate.
Okay, sir.
Good question.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. What do you do, Tony?
Okay, I'm an IT.
I hear you. Destruction. IT manager? Sorry?
I said I'm an IT manager. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
I'm an IT manager in a non-profit organization.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. All right. Questions? Contributions? Question? Contributions? Question? The course is ending, so anything we've done so far, unless you have not watched the video. Once you have watched the video and there's still something that's that you do not understand, feel free to ask. Doesn't have to be about this class specifically. IIS, Internet Information Services.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
I just want to ask, what kind of security feature do you put in place for someone that wants to log into a portal in school or the department from a system from the house?
Okay, what kind of security measure do you put in place to check who is able to browse? Browsing?
From outside the school environment, maybe or logging into a portal or an application outside the school, like a staff of the school, maybe wanting to work from home or something.
Okay. There are many things. There are many levels of security. It depends on, first of all, if it's a really enterprise network within the school, then you have a router. Do you have a router? This network we're talking about, Olasokomi, is there a router on the network?
Whichever way, sir. I said whichever way, whether a router or a network. Like,
okay. Because it's
an in-house application.
Yeah, it's very wide.
Portal. Okay.
Huh? Yeah, not clear at all. Just discussion and but generally your question is wide. So you can configure security at the router level, you can configure security at the switch level, you can configure security at the application level, or even within your Windows server environment. So there are so many things you can do. So you can allow only certain IP addresses. Okay. So that is one, and the common one, so that outside those IP block, anybody attempting to come in will not be allowed. Then at the application, you could configure allow HTTP or don't allow HTTPS. If you block HTTP at the port level, you could allow some port and block some port. If you don't allow HTTP, then nobody will be able to browse. And then if you allow HTTP, you can select the IP addresses that will be able to browse. Then the other simple one we just experienced today. There are so many of them, very, very many. They are not rigidly like do this, do this, do this. No, it's security. And security is available almost at all the layer 3, layer 2, and even at the application layer. Okay, session layer. Yeah. The simple we just experienced today, for example, is irrespective of where you are logging in from, as long as you are not a member of the domain using authentication. You remember the authentication for web browser? Then you'll not be able to log in. So that's another level of Windows level authentication. And then, of course, if you play around with Windows, you go deep into Windows and see what is possible under group policies. You see, there are so many things, so many that even one man cannot remember them all. So there are things you can tweak, you can check or uncheck to to facilitate your security. Okay. So the reason I was asking you, do you have a router, is so that I can specifically say, okay, at this router level, at this network layer level, these are the things. Access list, I've not mentioned access list. Can determine at the router level, okay, these are the people that should be allowed access or not allowed access to anything on the network. Or, okay, they can access particular things on the network, but not these things. At the Windows server level, security. Under security, you can say, okay, this person can have access to these resources from this time to this time, but not these resources anytime, and this other resources all the time. So different levels. So that question will be, for interview, will be too wide. It just gives you an opportunity to mention as many protocols as possible, as you know, just to clear, just to show I know this thing. But more specifically, if they really wanted a specific answer, they'll tell you at this level, at the router level, or at the switch level, or at the Windows server level, what facilities are available within Windows to check this.
Firewall. So all of them, like, there'll be like there'll be a connector that like all of them like come to the firewall, the Windows server, the router, and this thing.
No, I didn't get that part. You see, there's a connector, right?
Yes, like a connector where you can checkmate it, not where you like investigate it, or like a connector where the switch, the router, firewall, Windows server.
Okay, you mean like a single interface through which you can see all of these things and be able to configure them?
Yes, like a connector, like now, like they have like a connector, a logger, and a ESM.
Okay, I don't really know what you mean by that connector. Looks like. What do you mean by connector?
Connector is like how will I explain this thing? Okay, when like they have firewall, it's just like that security part of it also. Like they have firewall, that router, all of them, they all come to that connector.
Okay, so like
the switch, all of them.
Like an interface, a single interface, like a screenshot of all of this. If you want to configure switch, you click this. Everything about switch will be there. You want to configure router, you find everything there.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Okay. Are you saying that there is, or you are asking if there will be a single?
No. I said there is, and he's talking about checkmating the security. There are people that want to log in and all that. Whether to allow some people to log in, I don't understand the what, but I'm telling him that like there's a connector, there's also a logger where you can check that, and there's a other place in ESM where you can investigate.
Okay. Yes, there's
people
always investigation. But the connector, what's that connector? What's the application that allows that? What was the name of that connector that you have used? Have you used the connector?
I've not used the connector. I've not, sir.
This connector you are talking about, where did you see it?
Okay, I actually learned that on AWS.
You read though. I've been reading very, very far and wide. That connector, it's not like not within this context. Maybe it's a different context. Because the same person is not likely to have access to all of these layers. These layers are okay.
I think there are about 7 layers.
Yeah. Okay, unless it's at a really very low level. Okay, it's possible at a very low level where the same person, just one person, at a very high, I mean low level as in, not confusing. But it's not rare, it's not common. Connectors like that are not common. It is possible to have it. That is, the same man is overviewing the security at all of these layers. You are seeing everything. Yeah, what will be difficult is that most times these functions are separate. They are separated from one another. This person's function as a Windows administrator is separate from the function as a router person. Is separate from the function as a switch person. Is separate from the function Unless you're not saying, what about the person who would overview, who is their supervisor, their manager, that would take a general look at all of them? There should be a central place where you can quickly run through and say, yeah, the security issue we're having is around the router area. And they can now call the router person and say, check this, check this. Okay, it makes sense. Just for the purpose of overview and supervision. For management level, it makes sense. But the real work, the real implementation would have to be separate because it's not one person that does all of it. But to monitor, to know what's going on, to troubleshoot, to, what did you call the other one? To check the login events, who did what and who did what. Yes, it should be useful that way. Yeah. It should be useful. That's what actually happens. Yeah, logger. That's what happens at the network operation system, where people will just sit down and monitor traffic, watching out for alarms at the different levels. So whether the alarm is at the server level or at the network level, they see what's going on. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. All right. So did you enjoy that contribution from Anne Afemefuna? And who has that question? Was it your last one? Okay, any more questions?
Master.
Yeah.
Yeah, with what we have learned so far, I happen to face one or two panels around, like trying to connect myself to a job, and I discovered that maybe here in Nigeria we have companies that use Oracle, and hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to know because I don't have option now. It's like I just have to maybe read or get a basic training on Oracle. At what level do you think it will also help me? I don't know.
At what level do I think to do what?
Yeah, because I discovered that they have the question that were coming were more of database managing of database or something.
No, I don't train in that area. IT is very wide, so I've picked the part I want to focus on, and I've focused on that part. It's cloud architecting and DevOps. So things outside that, I'm not an expert there. Even some of these things that Anne is mentioning, I'm not really very conversant with them because they are not within my own area or specialization. Just that as an IT person who has had these experiences, I can picture it, but only at the high level. I may not have used them directly. So I'm not able to help you with Oracle or things relating to database management. I can help at database engine level within cloud, but to go specifically into databases, no, I don't have that expertise.
Thanks.
All right, question. Question? You got 7 minutes to ask questions.